How's it going, everyone? It's Holly from Weather SpongeBob. That was the day. It's August 10th, 2021, and today we're, of course, going to talk about what will likely become Tropical Storm Fred and see what type of impacts you should experience throughout the Caribbean and even the United States in the future. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather records. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather records. So let's begin by taking a look at the current water vapor imagery for Tropical Storm Fred, and you see that we're starting to see convection on the eastern side of the storm, as this looks very much better organized than it was just a couple of days ago, where the thunder showers were very isolated and there wasn't really any organization. But now we're starting to see the convection occur right around the center circulation, which is key for tropical cyclone development, because that creates a lot more convection and that creates a lot more lift in the lower levels of the atmosphere to induce a lot of strong winds that really intensify some of these tropical cyclones. And you see that we're starting to see convection on the eastern side and on the western side, and especially the southeastern side. We do see a lot of dry air as of right now, which is probably the reason why this isn't considered a tropical cyclone or a tropical storm just yet, because we still need to see a little bit more convection around center circulation and on the southern side to really make this be considered a tropical cyclone, because tropical storm really needs a full center circulation with full convection all throughout the center circulation. And when you don't have it, it's unlikely that it'll develop into a tropical storm. However, in this case, it seems likely that we will eventually see just enough thunderstorm activity around the center circulation in the lower levels of the atmosphere to that we will see Tropical Storm Fred likely later today, and we will begin to see those thunderstorm clusters begin to form on the eastern side of this storm. So we will see a developing Tropical Storm Fred over the next several hours. Now, if we were to take a look at what's ahead of it, we do have a little patch of dry air that's just to the east of it. However, just to the west of it. However, it isn't enough to really kill off the storm or really inhibit tropical cyclone development, as this isn't a ton of dry air. It could easily handle this amount of dry air, and we're seeing nice outflow on the western side of the storm, so that should sort of push away the dry air away from the center circulation, and that should make this storm really develop in an isolated environment that's away from the dry air. So as a result, development is likely over the next several hours, as the main really obstacle for Tropical Storm Fred or potential Tropical Storm Fred will be the land interaction, which will be key in the future, because of course you see the islands of Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Haiti. They are very mountainous and they are known to completely kill off tropical cyclones because they're so mountainous. There's a lot of friction and they force a lot of convection to occur in the mountain ranges, which pretty much means that the storm will dry out a lot faster because it's going to be over land, and all those moist air molecules will be forced upwards in the atmosphere and condense at a rapid rate that's far more rapid than the amount of evaporation that's occurring. So land interaction will be key for the storm going forward. Now, taking a look at the current statistics for this storm, you see that it's currently at 35 miles per hour, which pretty much the National Hurricane Center isn't considering this a tropical depression just yet, as it's pretty much considering this a potential tropical cyclone 6, because it's pretty much inevitable that we're going to see Tropical Storm Fred out of this. And the central millibar pressure is at 1,012 millibars, which is pretty high, which means that this will likely have a small circulation, and it's moving west-northwest at 18 miles per hour, which is a little on the fast side, but isn't super fast to really inhibit this storm from really developing over the next several days. So now you might be wondering, well, what is the peak strength this storm could get to in the future, and where exactly this will go? So to determine that, we're going to take a look at the GFS model over the next several hours. So we're first going to talk about the strength forecast, see what will determine the strength, and then we'll of course, talk about the track forecast right after that. So to first determine the strength of potential tropical cyclone Fred in the future, we first need to take a look at the upper level winds and the wind shear map, because of course wind shear is a huge determinant in whether a tropical storm develops or not, or a tropical cyclone continues to develop. If there's a lot of wind shear, then it's unlikely we will see tropical storm Fred develop, or there is a possibility that we might see tropical storm Fred completely die out if there's a lot of wind shear. However, if we were to take a look at the wind shear over the next several days, the wind shear will be relatively light throughout the Caribbean. It won't be non-existent over the next several hours, because there's still that potential we will see some wind shear in the Caribbean as a result of a little upper level low that's located in this area. But as you can see, the wind shear is going to be fairly light throughout the main development region of the the Caribbean, as you could see. So if we were to continue to move forward over the next several hours, you see that there's going to be a little bit of an upper level high over this low, which I would say is a little concerning, because that means that this storm will have a pretty good outflow in the future, which will allow for more convection. However, this upper level high is producing wind shear on the outside, but it's unlikely that the center circulation will interact with that, with those stronger upper level winds, as the main wind shear obstacle will be this upper level low that's going to be located towards Florida right around the Thursday timeframe, August 12th. However, this upper level low is fairly weak. It isn't producing a lot of wind shear, and this upper level low is expected to move northward. So as a result, the wind shear should be really light as this storm heads further and further westward. And you see that once this storm heads around the coast of Florida, you see that there's strong upper level winds, but it's induced by this upper level high that's going to be right over the storm. And since it's going to be in an area where a lot of divergence will occur, the center of divergence will occur, and upper level winds will occur on the outside, it's going to miss out on a lot of the strong wind shear that this upper level high will produce. So the wind shear should be relatively light even as it heads closer and closer to the United States. However, if we were to head further into the long-term future, we will see soon a trough move through the United States, where this storm should be really close to landfall, and this will be one of the factors that may turn this storm northward into the Gulf Coast. So we need to keep this certainly in mind, and keep in mind I'm going 6 days out with this, so there's still a lot of uncertainty when we're talking about forecast 6 days out, especially regarding the wind shear. We really need to see when this trough will move through the United States to determine what strength this will be. However, the wind shear will definitely be in this storm's favor over the next several days, which is certainly a concern. But it's not the only factor when determining the strength of the storm. We also need to take a look at the moisture. So if it were based alone on the wind shear, then I'd be concerned that we would see a rapidly intensifying tropical storm or even hurricane. However, there are also other factors that that are expected to limit this storm from rapidly developing over the next several days, and in fact might weaken it. And one of those things is dry air, because if we were to take a look at the dry air, like I said in my when we were taking a look at the water vapor imagery, there's a lot of dry air on the western side of this storm, and while I don't think the dry air will be inhibit this storm from developing in a major way, I do still expect it to at least slow it down a little bit from rapidly intensifying. But this storm is sort of embedded in a small circulation, so it's likely that the storm will fend off a lot of this dry air and pretty much isolate itself from the dry air to the point where it'll be able to develop despite the somewhat hostile conditions as a result of the dry air. And however, the dry air does weaken as this storm heads further to the northwest. However, by this time the storm should be weakening, and I think that one of the main reasons is that it's going to just deal with a lot land interaction, as this storm is expected to move over the Dominican Republic, Haiti, which is which are islands which are countries that have very high terrain, and that should definitely slow the storm down. However, when it comes to dry air, it should also be limited once the storm heads further northwestward. Excuse me, but you see that the moisture should be a little bit more prevalent in the southeast once the storm heads further northwestward, which is definitely a concern. So with the dry air not being, I will say that it's gonna be a factor when weakening this storm early on, but beyond that, the dry air should be relatively light. So as a result, I do expect that this storm will strengthen once it later in the future, I'd say beyond the Cuba point. So we will see the storm strengthen a lot more once it heads closer to the southeast, in my opinion. But there's still a lot of uncertainty because, again, I'm forecasting this 6 to 7 days out, so we need to wait and see. But the GFS model, of course, is strengthening this storm to, I'd say, a strong tropical storm at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we could see a hurricane out of this, because like I said, the dry air won't be much of a factor once this heads to the Gulf of Mexico, and the wind shear will be relatively light, and it won't deal with a lot of land interaction like it's expected to early in the future over Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba. So as a result, this could be our next hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, which is something we need to keep certainly a close eye on. All throughout the Gulf Coast, even head further westward. Now, in terms of the track forecast, because that's also another huge factor when forecasting the impacts to a certain area, we need to determine where exactly the storm will go. So we need to take a look at the height anomaly, the 500 millibar height anomaly in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So if we were to take a look at that, you're going to see that, give me just 1 second here, it's loading up, but you're going to see that the main steering flow will be a ridge in the pretty much a ridge that's going to be located towards the western Atlantic, and that will be a huge factor in determining the exact track of the storm. So taking a look at the height anomaly at 500 millibars. So let this load up, and you see that the storm at this point, let me go back to where we are right now. The storm is pretty much located just to the southeast of Puerto Rico, and you see this big Bermuda Ridge, as this is going to be the main steering flow that's going to steer it a little westward. However, eventually there's going to be a trough that dips down throughout the United States by next week, and that should begin to steer the storm north. Now, a huge determining factor is when this trough will move into the southeast, because if it moves a little faster, then of course we will see this storm turn north a little faster to maybe where it mainly affects Florida, and who knows, potentially the southeast coast of the United States, like Carolinas and Georgia, if this trough comes early enough. However, if this trough moves slower than expected, then we could see the impact shift further westward into the Gulf of Mexico, where maybe Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama get more involved, and Florida and the southeast coast gets less involved. So if we were to take a look at going further into the future, you see that dominating ridge, and we see another ridge build that's going to steer it further westward. We're going to see this ridge located right around the northeast, around the 5-day point, right around Sunday, August 14th. But then you see we're going to see a little bit of a dip. We're going to see a little bit of a trough move through the United States, and this should create a weakness in ridging throughout the eastern half of the United States, and that's expected to steer the storm northward. Now, the current consensus from the computer models is that this will steer straight into the panhandle of Florida or along the west coast, the west Gulf Coast of Florida. However, we're forecasting this around 5 days out, so there's still a lot of uncertainty of where this storm could go. Like I said, if this trough moves in faster, we could see a track further eastward. If this trough moves to the east slower, then we could see the track further westward, where it impacts the more western Gulf Coast states. We just need to wait and see. However, currently the forecast is that this will move into the panhandle of Florida sometime next week. Now taking a look at what the current computer models are saying, the ensemble members, you see that they're over the next 120 hours, you see that the European model is still forecasting this to make landfall right around the panhandle of Florida, and we do see a little bit more strengthening in the later runs. It isn't a lot of strengthening. Most of these ensemble members are taking some sort of strong tropical storm right around the coast of Florida, but I do still expect that there is a chance we might see something stronger than that, and potentially a category 1 hurricane if the conditions are right based on what the computer models are saying, because both the European and the GFS model aren't expecting a ton of wind shear nor a ton of dry air in the Gulf of Mexico once this heads further and further into the northwest. We need to wait and see, because there's still a lot of factors that will determine this storm's fate, but right now it seems like the current consensus is that we're going to see some sort of strong tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico, so we need to keep a close eye on that. Now, in terms of the rainfall, because assuming this does come very close to Florida, you could see heavy rain out of this within the next 5 days, more specifically on the 5-day mark, where you see up close to 5 inches of rain should be expected right around Miami and along the southern coast of Florida, and I expect more beyond the 5-day mark further northward into the Gulf Coast states. But again, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Pretty much I'd say from the Carolinas all the way to Texas needs to pay close attention to this, because there could be major changes in the forecast, especially when we're talking about something 5 days out, and there's still a chance that this maybe doesn't really develop into nothing at all in the Gulf of Mexico, but I'd say more likely than not, we will see some sort of tropical storm come very close to the United States. So this is something we certainly need to keep in mind. In terms of what the National Hurricane Center is saying, we do see tropical storm warnings issued for Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, as the main threat will be heavy rain, so keep that in mind, especially in the higher elevations of the Dominican Republic where mudslides are very prominent. So make sure to keep that in mind and stay prepared all throughout the Caribbean islands, and Cuba needs to pay close attention to this, and of course Florida needs to pay close attention to this. I wouldn't say prepare now, but it's at least something to be aware of all throughout the southeast coast of the United States. So keep that in mind if you're in the United States. Now, in terms of my strength forecast, so keep in mind these are just my thoughts alone. To make decisions, seek official guidance from National Hurricane Center. But I'm expecting this to maybe develop into a very strong tropical storm once it heads very close to the coast of Florida, because all the conditions seem conducive enough for this storm to develop once it just heads off the coast of Cuba. And I do expect it to weaken just a little bit once it heads over the higher elevations of Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba. But it should at least maintain tropical storm strength, in my opinion, and then we will begin to see strengthening later during in the later future. But yeah, guys, I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. And I hope you guys have a good day.